here at Geekin Out, we're going to finally finish the Rule of Two Lineage discussion here with Uncle Tony.
That's me.
Yeah! You can see a beautiful new border-ish. We're officially Star Wars edition Geeking Out. So we're going to talk about purely Star Wars on this cast.
So this Geekin' Out show is the Star Wars show for Geekin' Out.
Yes, correct, sir.
All right, then it's a good thing I'm here.
Yes, good thing. First, we're going to go over our first Fulcrum report, which is basically a report on any rumors or news Star Wars related or geek related that we want to bring up.
All right.
So there's an online rumor that there's going to be a 6-episode miniseries focused on Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I love it.
On the little Disney streaming service.
Yeah. Do you know when the streaming service is going to
I think next year sometime, which is, of course, a must-have for us.
I'm trying to decide which streaming service I'm going to drop so I can get that and tell my wife, it's for the kids.
Yeah.
We need to get that for
not
the kids.
Not for Disney. I mean, not for Star
there's
Wars.
Star Wars stuff on that?
And Marvel and all that good
superheroes?
stuff. Yeah.
Who knew?
I assume they're going to have all the movies and stuff like that, too, so it's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But not only was Kenobi rumored, but there's also... Actually, let me talk about that one first.
Yeah, let's get into that for a little bit.
So what do you think about that? I know they were talking about a movie originally that they were going to think of.
6 episodes?
Yeah, like a mini-series. It's rumored. I mean, it's not an official release or anything, but...
So the first question that pops into my head is, when exactly is it going to happen? When is it going to happen?
Supposed to be after Return of the Sith, before A New Hope.
Yeah, that's...
Revenge of the Sith. God damn it. I always call it
not
Return of the
a
Sith.
very narrow window to... After Revenge of the Sith, before A New Hope. So that's 20 years.
Right.
That's
the
fucking,
window.
That's vague as fuck.
Yeah, exactly. So I assume mostly Tatooine type stuff.
Yeah, probably. Maybe he'll dabble in a little bit of it'd be nice if he dabbled in a little side work for the rebellion. Maybe hangs out with Ahsoka or some shit.
Right, that'd be sweet.
That would be pretty cool.
And I assume he went to Dagobah and got some training from Yoda too that we never actually saw or anything.
You think he visited yoga? Yoga.
He did a lot of yoga in his spare time on Tatooine. So he kept that stunning bod.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I know they came out with a Kenobi book, which I read, and I think you read as well, which I believe is actually Legends, as most other books.
That one wasn't terrible, but it was a little humdrum.
Yeah, I liked it overall, and if they did some of that, like stole some things from there, I wouldn't be like upset with this miniseries. Like him trying to contact Qui-Gon Jinn and talk to him and stuff like that was pretty cool. He actually teamed up with like Tusken Raiders in the book and did some weird stuff like that, which I don't know if that would fly now.
That was a long time ago that I read that book. That was a few years. That's probably when it came out. Was when I listened to it.
And of course, he has constant regrets with what happened with Anakin and all that stuff, and replaying that in his head.
Mm.
So sort of like the nightmare scenario, like he just keeps on thinking about that and what he could have did differently and all that. So I mean, there were some good things in that book that they could, steal.
Yeah.
But we'll see where it goes. Like I said, it's not official or anything, but it's something to bring up.
I just hope they put a lot of thought into it and just make it quality and just do some quality work to it. I mean, I don't know. Obi's always kind of been my favorite.
Yeah, mine too.
So I just don't want them to fuck it up.
I mean, the same thing, I guess.
Job.
The same argument with him as there is Solo. Like, do we need to see more? But as a big fan of his, yes.
Dude, they keep saying Solo was a bomb. It did maybe it didn't do awesome for a Star Wars movie, but it was a huge fucking movie, and they keep saying it's a bomb. And I keep hearing people say like, "Oh, I didn't want a Solo movie." What the fuck are you talking about? As soon as I started talking about this, I was just like, like I can't wait. And the people that wrote that book, not so much. So it was the team, the Kasdan team father and son Kasdan team, Lawrence, and I can't remember his son's name, but obviously Lawrence Kasdan, he wrote some of the original movies, and him and his son wrote Solo, and his son is a big fan of the extended universe. So all those little tidbits that you got in that movie, like Teräs Käsi, how Kira knew that martial art,
right?
The stuff about Aura Singh, how what's his name, Woody Harrelson, Woody Harrelson like pushed her off or something. Stuff about that's all the son, little Kasdan. I can't remember his first name. I'm sorry. But I mean, like that team, like I don't get it. I thought that movie was fucking awesome. It's now one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and the fact that like it's a scum and villainy movie. It's
right.
not like it's not a Star Wars.
It's not necessarily good versus bad like most of the Star Wars.
Seems to be. Back in the day, those old books that we use for our RPG, the Saga edition. There's a whole book that came out called Scum and Villainy, and like that Scum and Villainy book is what this movie was.
Right.
It could have been. You could use that campaign book to do this movie perfectly. And that's what I loved about the movie. It was like a whole different. It was a look inside the life of real Star Wars people, even though like some of those people become bigger than life eventually. I don't understand why people are not loving that movie.
I mean, I definitely love the movie, and recap. I'm not sure what episode it is. So I'll put it at the end of this cast on YouTube. A link to it of me and Bear doing like a instant reaction after we saw it.
That was a good episode. I liked that episode.
But I loved it, and I think a lot of it was, we didn't like The Last Jedi, so we're not going to go see Solo. So even though it might be a good movie by itself, which not most people, but some people say, because they're like, I'm done with Star Wars because I didn't like The Last Jedi. So I'm not going to go see that. But I thought it was well done. It was different. It was a heist movie, Star Wars heist movie, which is pretty awesome.
You don't get to see that.
You saw a lot of cool different characters, even different races that you haven't seen.
They took a classic trope, like an old Western trope, of robbing the stagecoach, robbing the train, and they put it in a futuristic cyberpunk kind of vibe to it. And I think they fucking nailed it.
And of course, the big things, not to go over too much of Solo, but just the big things like how Solo and Chewbacca got together and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You saw that fleshed out and all that sort of thing.
There's lots of parallels. There's a series of books, the Han Solo books, written by A.C. Crispin, who passed away a few years ago. There's lots of stuff. There's little bits and pieces taken from those books, and like Kira definitely reminds me of one of the characters from those books where Han was he's involved with this girl, and then they end up breaking up, but then she comes back to say, hey, I'm with this group, and if you help me out doing this thing, da 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 da, and he's like, all right. But she ends up being a member of the rebellion, and then screws him over and takes all the loot. And she's like, sorry.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It was a bittersweet kind of like, oh yeah, she got you. But you could tell like, and the book was well done, so you could tell how sad Han was and whatnot, and how like fucked over he felt. But
you saw that in the movie too. Like, he's like, yeah, she's coming right now, no problem. And then like, flies away. He's like, what the hell?
Yeah. So
I think, of course, Darth Maul then was an awesome surprise. How they all linked that together and everything.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. So he escaped Palpatine. I think in one of the comic books they show how he is, because Palpatine captured him. In the Clone Wars cartoon
when they're fighting on Mandalore.
Yeah, he kills
Jar Jar Press.
Savage Opress. Yeah, he kills Savage Opress, and then he beats Darth Maul down, and he's like, I think Darth Maul kind of begs for his life. Don't kill me. He's like, oh no, I got way more worse shit for you, something like that. So obviously he must have escaped there, and I'm pretty sure there's a comic book that came out that explained how he escaped. I think the Mandalorians, some of the Mandalorians that were still loyal to him from the Death Watch, kind of orchestrated it.
Well, he was the leader of. We'll get into it a little bit more, but he was the leader of like all like the big like clans, like the Pike Syndicate and the Black Sun and all that stuff.
Yeah, basically,
because he just went in and just like owned shit, went around with Savage Opress and like I'm the leader of this group and the leader of this group, and then he killed the leader Pre Vizsla,
who was
of
the
Death Watch.
The Death Watch, yeah, the Mandalorians.
Then he ran Mandalore.
And he used it. So while Vizsla was alive, maybe we should wait for the conversation to get into.
So yeah, I think the Obi-Wan spinoff, even though it went, of course, down a rabbit hole as usual, would be good, depending on what they do with it. I mean, I assume they had a lot of material for the movie already, because that was sort of in the plans, it seemed like. Mm-hmm. So they can just pick and choose from that. The book, there's plenty of other non-canon that they could choose from.
I think they should get the Kasdan team there, Kasdan Senior and Junior, to write it. I think they should write everything together. Everything that comes out Star Wars, it should be them writing it, as far as I'm concerned right now.
And, of course, the biggest thing is supposedly it's supposed to be Ewan McGregor again.
Yeah.
Which would be is like the only. I mean, who else is going to play him at this point? Like, no one could do Obi-Wan like him now. He's older now. He would fit the bill. Yeah. It just makes sense.
You could have him play Obi-Wan until he transitions into Alec Guinness age. That'd be fine with me. I don't know how he feels about it, but I mean...
It's all like the makeup and CGI and all that stuff. I'm sure they can make him look a little bit older. But like in between Ewan McGregor, Sir Alec Guinness, so if they wanted to go down that timeline a little bit.
Oh, like do little bits of him being older sometimes? Yeah, why not?
Maybe like have his beard start to gray and all that sort of stuff.
You could have him narrate it as an old man, and then the series could end when he leaves Tatooine with Luke.
Right.
Dun dun dun. You're welcome, Disney.
You're welcome. I'm sure you watch the show.
I can write stuff for you.
Please, can I write stuff for you?
Yeah.
So some other ones that are rumored. There's supposed to be a Rogue One spinoff featuring the return of Diego Luna as Cassian Andor, which I'm not sure if I'm saying that correct.
Who? Oh, Cassian Andor.
Cassian Andor, yeah.
Andor, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's the main character in Rogue One.
Right.
Him and what's her face there?
Which I'm not really too excited about it. I mean, it'd be cool to like comic book level sort of thing, but I don't think he needs like his own series unless they dig more into the rebellion. But I'm not sure.
I hear you about like I don't need that, and that's what they said about Han Solo, but I kind of feel that way about this too. But at the same time, I can't help but think like that part in the beginning of Rogue One where he was like super shady and killed his contact. So he wouldn't like give him up.
He's supposed to kill Jin there too.
Yeah. Am I gonna see more of that?
Yeah.
Cassian Andor? How dark is this series gonna get? Well, because if it's gonna go like dark like that, then now you've piqued my interest.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was. Pretty much precursing or whatever you want to say. If they explain the rebellion more in that light, like basically. Rogue One showed rebellion in a darker light than you normally would see in other movies, which is awesome because they're good guys. They always do the right thing.
It was a more truthful representation of what
a civil war type,
guerrilla fighters. Fight like.
So if they do more of that sort of thing, I'm up for it definitely. But the character himself, I mean, it'd be cool because you know this character and he eventually takes a turn for the better or the gooder or whatever you want to say. And he does the ultimate sacrifice, you know what I mean, at the end. Like he didn't have to do that even though he was locked on the planet, but
I'm willing to give it a shot.
Right.
I'm willing to give it a shot.
Not
super excited.
Definitely not Obi-Wan level or another one level once we get a little bit further down this list.
Right.
So that's another one.
I'm not chomping at the bit to see that show, but I mean, if you do a good job, I'll watch it.
Yeah, as long as with anything, like we mentioned about Marvel a little bit earlier, they threw those out so quick. It seemed like every time you turned around, you got done one, and then another one came out, and it was just like, oh man, another one I got to somehow keep up with.
Well, the reason why I'm willing to give it a chance, speaking of like movies, like Ant-Man. When I heard they were making an Ant-Man, my initial reaction was, why? We don't need an Ant-Man. And then I watched it, and I was like, I like that movie. All right. I'll watch the second one.
Right.
It caught me off guard, and I thought it was a really good movie. But it's so if they can do that, like even though I'm not like I don't give a shit about Cassian Andor, ultimately, if they do a good job and make me care about them, then I'll,
I think their goal ultimately is to fill out any gaps of time with miniseries, comics, movies, whatever.
They're banging out the comics like
yeah. Crazy. So like the animated series, now the new one is Resistance, which we haven't talked about much, but that's filling the gaps between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens.
Right.
So they're filling that gap, which there wasn't really fleshed out at all cinematically. So obviously they did the Rebel show and so on and so forth. Clone Wars, which wasn't fleshed out until those series were made, the animated series. Like the movies, there was barely anything. Clone Wars started, and then all of a sudden, it was Revenge of the Sith.
Well, that happens every time a movie comes out. Like the movie comes out, and then people will notice something in the movie, and then there's a 4-book miniseries about this little one thing someone said in one of the movies for like it was a 5-second something crazy like Quinlan Voss.
Right.
Like he was based on a dude who was sitting at some place, some kind of like restaurant, outdoor restaurant in episode 1. They walked by him. He was a dude with dreads and a little yellow stripe across his nose, and he became one of the most loved comic book characters. They made a comic book character out of him, and he survived the Clone Wars. Went all the way to the end, started a family, had a kid. That's a part of Legends that you'll never see again. Oh, and they fucking ruined him in the Clone Wars. Ruined him. Yeah. He was a dipshit in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I don't really remember that character much, to be honest, but
yeah. I thought the comic books.
But if you already had that connection with them, you're gonna be looking out for him, and here he is. Okay.
The I thought his story arc in the comic books was cool, and then I heard they were bringing him into the Clone Wars cartoon, and I was like, yeah. And then I saw that cartoon, and I was like,
no.
What?
Yeah.
You forgot what made this guy cool. You didn't have any of that. Dude, if you're not, don't get me wrong, I love 90% of, I like a lot of what the Clone Wars did, but when they did that a couple of times. Like they brought some EU back, and it's like, dude, if you're not gonna include what made it awesome in the EU, then leave it the fuck alone. Don't touch it.
Right.
Because you just made it stupid.
Improve it, don't friggin' butcher it.
If you're not gonna make it better or at least keep the continuity of it to make it just at least as good, then leave it the fuck alone. That's my little rant.
Well, I think that was part of the Clone Wars, I guess, was more, even though obviously a lot of adults watched it, it was them trying to get the kids into it. So they made a lot of these funny characters, like Yoda was like ridiculous in the show most of the time. But he was a little silly in the movies anyway, so I guess it wasn't really that far-fetched.
Yeah, he was a bit of a...
they made him like silly, and that made the the kids like him. So then it just had people like watching it and stuff like that.
I really like that arc they did with him in the Lost episodes, the Clone Wars Lost episodes. That was really good. With the what do they call the Wills? The shamans of the Wills.
Yeah, that was interesting. Cool. That whole thing. But again, we're getting off track.
Yeah.
So I'll watch it with with him.
I'll give it a shot. But whatever. If it doesn't happen, I won't be upset.
Right. So there's a few other ones. Young Princess Leia.
Meh.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like rebellion again, like explain more of that, not like her like growing up, like maybe it's sort of if you see Organa more.
I don't know. I'm kind of
but again, it's
when I was a kid, there was Young Indiana Jones. I've seen that done a bunch of times. The only time that it's ever been done that I liked was when they did it with Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. Other than that, what was the other one they've done recently where they've gone back? I'm losing it. Doesn't matter. Usually those don't work out great. I don't know. I don't care. That.
I mean, again, it's just a rumor at this point. Nothing is officially announced with any of these, so it's sort of, maybe it might be even just someone like put a list together of missing things or something.
Yeah, I hope that's bullshit.
The next one is Captain Phasma.
Meh.
Which you read the Phasma book. I read the Phasma book. They already fleshed her out.
Yeah.
Until she gets to the First Order, so I don't understand why they would come up with something else.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, it's already out there, her origin story.
Right. Are they really going to do that, or is that a rumor?
Again, these are all rumors, so...
Right, these are all rumors.
But yeah, if you haven't checked the Phasma book, check it out.
It was a good book, but my official opinion on there being a miniseries about her is meh.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah. The Knights of Ren, which I actually would like to see.
That sounds interesting. I agree with
if
you
they don't flesh it out on episode 9.
Right.
A little bit further, because it was a cool premise of, like, Kylo Ren and these guys, girls.
These are the people he brought with him from Luke's Jedi Academy.
Correct. So what happened to them?
They pulled from the books.
To see what happened with them, like where are they now? Did he just betray them and kill all of them when he got what he wanted?
I think they're still fought around somewhere. I have a feeling they're still out and about.
Well, I'd figure there'd be more information in this movie because they were introduced in Force Awakens, which is J.J. Abrams.
Right.
And this one's going to be J.J. Abrams again, episode 9. So it just makes sense that he'll flesh those out a little bit more.
Ryan Johnson was almost going to make those Imperial Guards. Those Imperial Guards were almost going to be the Knights of Ren turned into
the Praetorian Guards?
Praetorian Guards, yeah, there you go. But Ryan Johnson finally came to the conclusion and was like, nah.
They were cool, though. I like those guys.
Yeah, I definitely liked them, too.
They're awesome.
They were a take on the Imperial Guards that Palpatine had.
Right.
There's a lot of...
Like a new and improved sort of thing.
Yeah, just like the Stormtroopers. New and improved Stormtroopers, kind of. Good stuff. Any other rumors out there?
2 more. Rose. Don't care at all.
Nope, I like Rose, but I don't want to see.
But again, I don't feel like she's even a character like I even needed. Like, and I mean, it's cool, like another female strong character in the movies, but
I like her fine. I got nothing against her character.
I don't think it, at least to me, I don't see it needed.
I think what was her name? Admiral Holdo from the other movie. I think I would keep Rose before I keep Holdo, because Holdo's storyline should have been Admiral Akbar's storyline.
Yeah.
They just threw Admiral Akbar away.
Right.
And you could have had him like really.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was instrumental in getting rid of the Empire, basically, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he just died."
Yeah, just gonna throw him in, have him not even like really talk, or just have him stand in the background.
I don't know.
It's dumb.
And again, my whole thing was they had I always forget his name, the guy messed up face that drove the Millennium Falcon with Lando and the Death Star in Return of the Jedi.
Oh,
they have him live for some reason.
Nub?
Yeah, I think you're right.
You know what trips me out? Like,
I'm like, why is this guy still living from the?
No, not that he's there. I don't care that he was there. What I thought was weird is he's still a pilot. That motherfucker still hasn't got promoted.
Yeah.
He is a shithead, isn't he? Why is he? It's like they keep him around because he won't fucking leave.
Right.
Whatever.
It's like, Haven't you died yet? What is going on?
So what's the last fucking rumor?
And the biggest one, I think, is Darth Bane.
Oh.
Series.
Well,
we've already fleshed that out, like how excited we were about anything.
Go back and watch, if you're watching this, go back and watch the Darth Bane trilogy. Basically, it's the beginning of our Rule of Two discussion.
Yep.
But it's actually...
Episode 16, 17, 18, I believe. I'll link those as well at the end with a solo discussion from me and Bear.
We go over Darth Bane, the 3 books that he's in, written by Drew Karpyshyn. It's basically book club, book review kind of thing. It's pretty good. It's awesome.
It's really good. Not pretty good. Watch it.
It was awesome. The
Listen,
books are all right,
do
too.
what you want. Yeah.
No, the books are
The review was better than the books.
Yeah. Read the books before you watch those. Or watch them first, whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely spoiler.
Yeah, it's filled with spoilers.
So now we can finally get into the actual continuation of the Rule of Two lineage. After all that. Last time we were like in discussion, basically when we ended the cast, about where Anakin came from and all that sort of stuff. And the Plagueis book said one thing, and then there's a comic book that said something else and all this stuff. So we did a little bit of research, and I'll just explain what that is so everyone knows. And I'm sure you're losing sleep over such things.
Yes.
So in the Plagueis book, it says, in addition, although Darth Plagueis did attempt to influence the midichlorians to create the ultimate Sith weapon alongside Darth Sidious, the experiment was ultimately a failure, and the midichlorians, sensing this inherent malevolent intention, not only refused to do so, but in retaliation conceived Anakin Skywalker in order to destroy the Sith once and for all. And that's why in the books, in the Plagueis book, when they realize Anakin's Anakin, they get sort of shook, Plagueis and Sidious, because they felt that like back, the blowback from the midichlorians and stuff like that. So that's why there was confusion, at least for me, when I read this book. And then when you mentioned about the comic book, so now the official canon, which that isn't canon, again, Darth Plagueis book is Legends. So Darth Vader number 25 is the comic book. In his fortress on Mustafar, Vader manages to basically breach the planes of like the living force and really like concentrating. Because if you don't know, Mustafar is very strong on the dark side, so he's like using all that power basically.
He built his castle there right on like the lip of a volcano and whatnot, and has like a volcano waterfall flowing through his castle,
which is awesome.
To help him focus on the dark side and whatnot.
As you saw in Rogue One, he has like a back to tank and all that stuff there, and that's where he's
hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excuse me. So basically, he, didn't mess, but in the planes of living force, he saw like a background of Anakin Skywalker, and it actually shows Sidious, like basically, like the panel is Sidious behind Shmi, like going like this sorceress style, and like creating something in her stomach.
So are they really in the same place, or is he like?
I think it's just like, I don't think he's like he picked her. Yeah, it's more like, okay, this is Sidious. They just want to portray it visually, like him doing it. But I didn't see anything in that comic book or any actual info why Shmi was chosen or whatever. I don't know if you saw anything as far as research, and that's still a mystery, at least that. So if anyone knows anything that we're missing, comment, email, whatever you guys want to do. So that's definitely interesting.
It kind of puts that that whole bit with Palpatine in episode 1, where he's like, "We're going to be watching your career very closely."
Yes.
Right. Kind of puts that in a whole new perspective.
Right. He know what he did. Well, he knows what he did, sort of thing. So he's like, okay, let's see what happens.
I'm your daddy.
Right. But of course, with Star Wars, the big thing is when you're trying to hide anything or hide yourself, you go to the Outer Rim. So he could have just like threw out his powers in the Outer Rim and just like, oh, here's someone that got it. You know what I mean? Because that's like how silly that is, but that's the only explanation. You know what I mean?
Shooting midichlorian, force jizz in every direction. All right.
So that's a little interesting. But just to clear that up a little bit as far as canon and non-canon, and which is, of course, confusing when you read a book, and even though it says legends or something, and that's why I was just like, wait a second.
So the majority of this Rule of Two stuff that we're talking about is legends and not canon.
Right.
But still
probably
good.
99% of it, to be honest.
It's still interesting and good, especially those Darth Bane books.
Yeah, not most of them. At least some of these Darth and Sith are actually cool characters and cool to learn about and all that stuff.
Actually, I'd say like the 3 Darth Bane books and this Darth Plagueis book are probably 4 of my favorite.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said last time.
10 at least, if not my top 5. Which only leaves one left.
Like I said last time, I'm glad they fleshed out Plagueis.
Yeah, that was
with
good.
Compared to the other Sith that could have been. You know what I mean?
I think that the writer that did that, James Luceno, he's written a bunch of Star Wars books, but in my personal opinion, I would say that's probably his Star Wars masterpiece. That one right there.
Yeah. So one thing I just wanted to throw out there, just interesting to think that Vader essentially killed his father, if you're going to call Sidious his father, but Luke saved his. So it's like that official turnover of like good versus bad thing, even more than
breaking the cycle.
Yeah, breaking the cycle sort of thing. And obviously, technically, with the Rule of Two, now Vader would become the master because he's killed his master.
Right.
Even though he was in obviously no shape or form to friggin' live, probably, unless he kept the mask on, and who knows what could have happened. But, so it sort of killed off the Sith somewhat right then and there, as far as like canon level.
Right.
So I got a what if that's talking about Plagueis and stuff like that, so we can go over that quickly, or how long it takes. I guess it doesn't have to be quickly. But, thinking about the Anakin thing and the Plagueis book and all that stuff, last time I came up with a what if. So what if Plagueis foreseen Anakin killing the Emperor eventually and found a way to survive even though his body didn't? Which, again, at the end of the Plagueis book, or at the beginning if you want to go that route, I guess, as well.
So Plagueis went on living somehow?
Well, he foresaw Anakin killing Sidious eventually.
Oh, okay. Darth Vader killing Sidious.
Yeah, well,
right. Okay, go on. Yep.
And he knew that he was going to be killed too.
Mm-hmm.
So he was already, in the book, again, not canon, he was already working with Kamino.
Oh, right.
So,
right.
maybe he made himself a clone or 2 or 3, who knows? Maybe he was, their first subject to see if it was actually, not the first, but a subject to see if it could actually be done. So maybe, since Sidious was so powerful and he probably didn't think he could beat him.
Maybe Sidious had some clones done.
Maybe Sidious, but what I'm getting at is because Sidious was so powerful, Plagueis didn't want to come back until the Emperor was gone.
Uh-huh.
And his clone is actually, Snoke is one of his clones.
Snoke is one of his clones? That's been floating around for a while.
That's not a big,
I thought that's what it was originally.
Right. I think...
And you know what, Snoke, he's not immune, but he's the most immune-looking fucking humanoid I've ever seen.
Right, but again, the Plagueis books, he gets his face chopped off pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And Snoke has the same sort of thing, has the scar and all that shit. But again, I think Disney officially said, Snoke is his own character.
Yeah,
but it's still fun to do the what if sort of thing.
That mouse has lied before.
Yeah. Of course they're going to hide their tracks. Oh shit, they knew exactly what we were going to do.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out here. And again, there's no backstory for Snoke yet, which I assume they would be after episode 9.
That would be cool, yeah.
So it's just interesting what if sort of thing.
All right.
So now officially back into the Rule of Two thing. Even I just said we already did that. So we ended off with Sidious killing Plagueis.
Right.
And at this time, Darth Maul and him are the only 2 Sith. So I know we had some discussion of if he was really thinking he was going to take over the mantle or not, but that's irrelevant to our conversation today, I guess.
Well, there's stuff in the comic books that where Plagueis had like thrown him some bullshit saying like you're the special one, you're the chosen one.
Right.
There's a, like he tried to tell him a couple of times that he was the chosen one and not Anakin.
Yeah.
And since we're getting to Darth Maul real quick, do you mind if I talk about there's a Star Wars put out a book called Visionaries with some what if stories, and there was a what if story where Darth Vader fights a rematerialized ghosty like thing of Darth Maul. Right?
Well, that could have very easily happened like in the Clone Wars or Rebels, I mean.
Right, so this is Darth Vader after he's completely Darth Vader, right? And this was a great little what if because he goes into this cave and Darth Vader goes in this cave to seek out Darth Maul or whatever, and Darth Maul he manifests and becomes real, and they fight, and the fight goes on for a little bit. Darth Maul kind of gets the best of Vader and gets him down on his knees, and Vader has this like lightsaber in front of him like this. Almost kind of like samurai style, like the way they go.
Right.
All right,
take his own life instead of getting killed or whatever.
What's that called? Like Harry Carry or something like that? I don't know.
Anyway, I don't know if Carrie's hairy or not. I don't know.
Yeah. So Maul is standing behind Vader, and he's got his lightsaber raised, and he's about to strike Vader down, and he like condemns him, and he's like, "How dare you think you deserve the mantle of Sith Lord over me? What could you hate? What could you possibly hate more than how could you possibly have more hate than me? What could you hate more than me?" And then Vader lights his saber, sends it through his chest into Darth Maul, and then he goes, "Me. I hate me."
Right.
More than anything you hate.
Well, I thought you were going to, I didn't read that or see that or anything. But they pretty much hate the same person. They both hate Obi-Wan. Hardcore. Yeah. So it's they're both like that's one of their main like influences or whatever. Their main driving powers is the hatred for Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
like they both want revenge on him. So it's sort of like they're almost one and the same as far as like being used by somewhat used by Sidious.
I think Anakin brought that shit on himself. I don't think he has any reason to hate Obi-Wan.
No, but he put him into the suit and all that stuff, and he thinks. I mean,
sure, he chopped off the rest of his limbs, but
right. Well, I think he believes that
Obi-Wan was messing
indirectly. Obi-Wan was the reason why
Padme
turned against him, and Padme got killed, even though it was obviously Anakin's hand that did it.
Yeah.
Choke or whatever. So I think there's part of that as well. And of course, he thinks his children died as well.
But he thinks that, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there's definitely some hatred there, I would think.
But back to Maul. So yeah, it's Maul and Sidious now. And this is right before episode 1 where those books leave off, right?
Yeah, pretty much the beginning of episode 1, because they explain like when Qui-Gon and Anakin come to Coruscant, like Plagueis is watching them and all that stuff. So it's basically the books end right before Palpatine becomes Chancellor.
All right.
Well, the book.
Yeah.
So we know again that's non-canon, and we're not going to go over Sidious too much because obviously he's fleshed out hardcore in the prequels, and his origin story was already explained in this book, even though it's not canon officially. But we're not going to go over canon Sidious that much.
So basically, we know what happens next. They go to Naboo and the city of Theed. That's basically episode 1. Like his parts in episode 1. Excuse me, are him kind of just helping the Neimoidian Nute Gunray and squaring that shit away, and he gets into a fight with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Takes out Qui-Gon, and then...
Yeah, well, he first fights Qui-Gon on Tatooine, but then he follows them to Theed and all that, follows them back. and or he's there waiting for them when they get back. Then there's that big battle. Like everybody knows this stuff. Everybody's seen the movies.
Everyone's seen episode 1.
But he ends up getting chopped in half. But
just to rewind a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Darth Maul to me is like one of my favorite characters. First of all.
Yeah.
And he's like when episode 1 was first announced. When I don't know how old I was, but this was the first Star Wars movie that was released in the theaters for me because I'm not as, I wasn't around for
me.
I didn't see it. So I was just like, holy shit, like who is this character? Like he looks fucking badass. Like he's so intimidating and stuff like that.
I was like, I felt the same way. Like this is gonna.
And
be
then
crazy.
when I think I mentioned this part in one of the casts before, but when Sidious is like hologram level talking to Newt Gunray and his little other douchebag guy. And he's like, I'm going to send my apprentice Darth Maul. And he comes up behind him like, yeah. And they're like, oh, no, there's another one.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy fuck. Like, what a way to introduce him. Like, I'm going to send him. Here he is. And he looks all badass and stuff.
Then that music starts. No.
No. That's exactly how it goes.
Some sunglasses come down over his eyes.
Little joint. But yeah, that was so fucking awesome. And then, when they're about to fight in the hangar, Padme is like, oh, we'll go the long way, because he sees the fucking Sith Lord. Like, they're like, okay, we'll fight this. You go the long way to freaking the throne room or whatever.
We'll hold this guy off.
Yeah. So it was just like, and just think how badass like he is. Like, okay, there's a Jedi master and a Jedi apprentice. And he's just like, I'm gonna go fight him. I don't give a shit. Like I'm ready for it. Like this is my chance.
He's a fucking savage. He's
not
fucking around.
This is pretty much what he's always wanted too. Like again, that Maul lockdown book.
Yeah. And
comics and stuff before this. Like he's always like looking, or he wants Sidious to push him to the next level. Like he wants more opportunities. He wants to, get his revenge on the Jedi, like you hear in episode 1.
Which I mean, like that is just such a weird motivator for me. I want revenge on the Jedi, dude. You don't even know them.
Just sit down and talk to them. They're not bad.
No, I mean like.
The thing is, though, like if you look at Darth Maul's origin story or whatever, like he was like beaten as a child and all that stuff. Not a typical, but relatively typical, like. Way someone becomes a Sith.
Yeah.
Like, there's some hardship, and then they turn to the dark side and stuff like that.
It's the same story for porn stars, but go on.
Yes. They turn to the dark side. So, like, his Sidious manipulated his hatred and pushed it towards the Sith, the Jedi. So now he's like, okay, all my hatred and, any of my pain is focused on them. So that's the way, at least the way I sort of take it.
I agree with you. Like that's how he thinks, but my take is like if I was a Sith, I wouldn't be like, oh, I want revenge on the Jedi. I definitely wouldn't like them, but it would just be more of like that's an obstacle that I need to deal with.
Right.
Like revenge. They didn't do anything to me. They're just a thing I need to get out of my way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's personally.
I mean, I think it's like. The ultimate goal with the Sith Rule of Two thing is take over the galaxy, take over,
Agreed.
All that stuff. So it's like you said, it's in the way, and of course,
I just don't understand why he's so angry.
He's so angry all the time.
All the time.
But we've talked about before, but I'll talk about again since we mentioned them all. Like this lightsaber fight is hands down better than anything in the old movies, and it's the first time you actually see like ridiculous lightsaber battles, and it's still, I think, probably one of the best in all the movies.
Oh yeah, it's definitely got to be in the top 5. I think there's 11 or 12 lightsaber battles altogether in the original 6. It might be, I might be adding in the new movies too. I'm not sure, but I think that's definitely one of the top ones. The battle with Rey and Kylo Ren and the Praetorian Guards. I think that's another one of my favorites. The one with Yoda and Palpatine. the one with Palpatine and Mace Windu.
Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Obi-Wan and Anakin was a good one, but it was just so long and drawn out.
Well, I think it was awesome because, like, if you think of the, like, not behind the scenes, but, like, precursor to that, they're master and apprentice.
Oh, yeah.
And they're constantly, like, fighting each other. They know each other's moves and all that stuff. So it was a real, like, struggle. Like, okay, like, you wouldn't think this person would turn on you, so how much are you really holding back?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, they know all my moves. They know all my force abilities, but...
When I first watched that, I was riveted. But now when I watch it, it's just like, this is a long time. The first, like, 16 times I watched it, I was riveted.
I get excited every time. But...
Yeah, you're young. Your stuff still works like that.
You're excited so easily. And one thing I think you mentioned to me, or someone did, I think it was probably you, you know, basically Maul gets the better of Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan almost falls down the pit, the friggin' energy shaft or whatever hell it is, exhaust port or whatever it's fucking called. And he jumps over Maul and chops him in half, and he pretty much left
Which
for dead.
is a parallel to what Anakin tried to do to Obi-Wan when he jumped over him. And why Obi-Wan was like, dude, I have the high ground. And Anakin's like, nah, my power.
I saw you a few movies ago. This worked perfectly for me. For you, I mean.
But I mean, like, he tries to do the move. Anakin tries to do the move that Obi-Wan did on Darth Maul. And Obi-Wan standing underneath him like, motherfucker, I invented that shit. I see this coming a mile away.
Right.
I taught you how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut off all your fucking arms and legs.
And I was only a Padawan when I did that shit.
Yeah, really. I invented that when I was a Padawan, motherfucker.
So that was definitely a cool parallel.
Yeah.
So, of course, you know, he falls down Darth Maul now falls down the shaft, and everyone thinks he's cut in half and he's dead and all that stuff. Which I was, at the time, I was like, fuck.
Right.
There's so much build-up for him.
All that build-up.
Such a cool character, all that stuff. I was like, fuck, man.
And really? Then they killed him. Killed him right away.
I was like, I understand, like, Vader needs to come eventually and all that stuff, but I was like, come on, like, I couldn't get another movie with him or something. I was disappointed.
So we're going to put him on pause and talk about Tyrannus and then come back to him?
Sure, or we can just keep on going.
All right.
So let's continue with Maul just to sort of keep it going, I guess.
Yeah.
So basically, I don't know if everyone knows, but Maul comes back in Clone Wars.
So he falls down that big hole, and he ends up in some kind of garbage chute or something.
Right.
He uses his will, his pure will and hatred to keep himself alive, using the Force to keep himself alive. And he gets scooped up by a space garbage truck and taken to a junk world.
Lothal Minor.
And he somehow builds himself some spider legs.
Yeah, he basically lives on vermin there, and with this pretty much living through eating rats, and his pure hatred is just like keeping him alive. But since he's alone and all this stuff, and his hatred's just like taking over,
and he
goes fucking crazy. Yeah, exactly. So his brother, Savage Opress, somehow, some way, finds him, and essentially brings him back to Dathomir.
He is sent by Savage Opress is sent by Mother Townsend,
right,
who is in canon now, officially their mother,
right,
their real biological mother.
So Savage Opress picks him up and brings him back to Dathomir. And Mother Talzin sort of makes his mind right and all that stuff, and gives him metal legs instead, that are just like instead of like the weird spider things, which are pretty cool.
Instead
actually,
of metal spider legs, he has like regular humanoid legs. Yeah. No, she gives him the chicken legs.
Right. Yeah.
At first. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the chicken legs. Yeah.
That's sort of ridiculous.
The General Grievous like chicken legs.
Right.
The same kind of chicken
legs
as
as
General Grievous. Yeah. So so he starts hopping around on those, which are cool.
I think the spider legs are pretty cool though. He
had like even like spider thorax
and
too,
like
right?
I don't know how like it went down. I don't know if it was really explained, but he had like his horns grew even longer and stuff in the Clone Wars and stuff. Yeah. I was like, he looks even fucking cooler now, like more deranged and stuff. And somehow he got back from his mind, going back to normal or whatever.
She pulled him back from the abyss.
So let's see what's next. So basically, once Maul is in the right of mind, so to speak, he takes Opress as his apprentice.
Yep.
And
Savage Opress at first, he's like, dude, you don't need to like be pushy with me. It's cool. We can be friends. And Maul's like, no. This is not a partnership.
Right.
You're my fucking bitch. And you're going to do what I say. And he kind of beats him up just to
they get in a fight. And
but like, Maul starts it. Like, he wants to establish his alpha male bullshit on his little brother.
And again, his obsession with Obi-Wan is still there. Hasn't gone away, but he's not totally, like, ridiculous hatred for him.
They try to lure Obi-Wan into a couple of traps.
Yep. So him and his brother begin terrorizing worlds.
And they start going around from, like, different... They start with the Mandalorians, and they create an alliance with the Mandalorians, which has Pre Vizsla is the leader of the Death Watch.
Yeah, the Death Watch is running Mandalore this time.
So then, once they make that deal with the Mandalorians, they use the muscle of the Mandalorians to go around to different like crime organizations and other like entities and just take them over. So he starts with like Black Sun, I think.
Yeah, he has the Black Sun. They take over the Black Sun, the Pike Syndicate, and the Shadow Collective, which is relatively all the major like crime organizations. So now Maul and Savage Opress are freaking leaders of all these groups, which is pretty ridiculous.
There was another one too that I can't remember the name of, but Black Sun in particular. That's where a very famous character, I think his name is Prince Xizor. I think Xizor is how you pronounce it. There was a book called Shadows of the Empire. Where
they had all those figures and stuff, I
have all those figures. So, actually, I have all your old figures too. So that was a callback to Xizor and all that, because all the Black Sun higher ups were a race called the Phaleen, and I just thought that was cool that they were. Like, it was like, oh, he looks like Prince Xizor. Like, like, the fact that they did that callback made me feel good. Like, that was a good callback, not like Quinlan Voss.
Well, if I remember correctly, they were like, oh, who the fuck are you guys?
Right.
And Savage Opress threw his double-sided lightsaber and just beheaded, like, almost everyone besides the head guy. He's like, okay, you can run shit.
I'm the one in charge. But I can't help but think, like, when all that shit hits the fan and Darth Maul isn't in charge of Black Sun anymore, that leaves room for, like, with that power vacuum there, I bet Xizor is like a lieutenant at that time, and it's like once Darth Maul is out of the picture, it's probably...
Yeah, but he's the only one left of the council or whatever.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Literally.
Right? So I don't know. You could totally bring Xizor back into canon and base it right off of what's going on now, because eventually Darth Maul gets killed. We know that.
Right. Spoiler.
Yeah. But I mean, the way everything's set up is perfect for another Xizor story. If you want to bring him back into canon, it would be perfect.
Just It'd be saying, cool to like explain
Disney,
that. Explain some of those syndicates a little bit further. Because really, I mean, there's a decent amount. Yeah,
the Pike was there.
Black Sun, any of that sort of thing. Yeah. So during the Clone Wars animated series, not the movie, Obi-Wan and Maul actually fight multiple times.
Yep.
And Maul ends up killing Obi-Wan's former love, Duchess Satine.
Yep.
Which is a sort of a huge like
kicking
blow
the balls
to him.
To Obi-Wan.
So this is like one of the
few big hit for him.
Yeah, it's one of the few times I thought Obi-Wan was going to go like ape shit,
and he didn't.
And it just like makes you like, well, at least for me, it makes me like respect him more as a Jedi and all that sort of thing. And I don't know, it was pretty awesome. But at this time, from that act of violence or whatever, it basically made a dark side ripple, and Darth Sidious felt the ripple and went to Mandalore, and fought Savage Opress and Darth Maul.
So that dark side ripple, was it caused by Maul killing her, or was it caused by Obi-Wan basically bottling up his feelings? Was he having like feeling evil thoughts?
The way at least it was explained to me, what reading and all that stuff, that it was him killing her, but it could have, like, that was the premise of it.
Okay.
But it could have been Obi-Wan, like you said. Obi-Wan's, shifting to the dark thoughts. And be like, okay, it might have been something like that.
That's what I was thinking.
Which I think would be cooler if it would explain like that, to be honest.
Going like, I'm going to kill this motherfucker.
And then oh shit, okay, I gotta get back to balance sort of thing, the Jedi way or whatever.
Deep breaths.
Yeah. So Sidious comes and just beats the shit out of any Mandalore guards that are there and stuff like that. Mandalorian guards and stuff.
He shows up on his ship, walks out, and two Mandalorians like, hey, and he's like, and they both just drop choking and shit. That was awesome. Then he just basically stomps right through wherever the fuck he wants. Nobody can stop him. And then he shows up with Maul and Oppressor there, and he shows up and he's like, "What's up?" And Maul's like, "My master, look at all the stuff I got for you. I got this for you." And Sidious is like, "Nah, you're trying to be a rival."
Yeah.
And that's when the fight starts. And that's probably one of my favorite lightsaber fight scenes too. Even though it's not in a movie. That one was one I watched when it came out the first time. I watched it a couple of times just and rewound certain stuff and certain.
It was sweet because Sidious had two one-handed lightsabers.
Yeah.
Oppress had one two-handed lightsaber, two-bladed lightsaber.
Double-bladed lightsaber.
Double-bladed, thank you. And Darth Maul had a regular one, so there was a lot of lightsabers, not to be like, oh, it was flashy, so this was cool.
He had the Mandalorian lightsaber.
Oh, he did have two. That's right.
He had the Mandalorian one.
Yeah, the black one, and a regular one, right?
No, I think he just had the Mandalorian one. Yeah.
I gotta rewatch that to remember. But anyway, it was a lot of fucking crazy shit going on. But Sidious kills Savage Opress at this time.
Yeah.
And Maul is okay, I give up, sort of thing. And he gets shocked with lightning a few times.
Yeah.
And
he's like, I just want to make sure you're giving up.
Right. And Sidious keeps him alive. He's like, I have plans for you. Which
that happened years after I originally read the Darth Plagueis book, but it made me think of Plagueis and Venomous.
Yeah. Well, I thought of it two different ways. I thought of it either he wants to bring him back to torture him and maybe mess with midichlorians or something, or he has okay, you fucked up. You know you fucked up. I'm gonna use you to go do other shit. Not
as my Sith apprentice.
Yeah, not as my apprentice.
Now you're just my bitch.
Exactly. You're my little bitch right now. And maybe even, I don't know, whatever is needed, because he's still a freaking awesome assassin and all that sort of thing.
Right. He's no joke.
Because at the time they're using Ventress as that level right now.
Right.
Which is
she still in the mix at that point? I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the timeline.
She's almost on the outs with Dooku at that point.
Yeah, because Sidious says she's getting too powerful. Kill her or whatever.
Isn't there at one point where Sidious is like, you need to kill her. She's
getting too powerful.
She's gonna think she's actually your apprentice.
Well, supposedly, she's not to get too much into that, but supposedly, Dooku is training her to be a real apprentice,
right,
and take over Sidious's thing. But at that
which is exactly what Palpatine did to Plagueis,
right?
And Dooku is doing it to him. And Sidious
that's a Sith way or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but I mean, that apprentice isn't supposed to exist until Sidious is dead, which all kinds of rule breaking of the Rule of Two goes on. Once Plagueis,
the whole lineage of it, basically.
Yeah, that people are varying from it every time, not every time, but a lot.
Well, I mean, even Was this before? I don't know. Was this before Oppress finds Maul? No, it was after Ventress was thought to be dead because they blew up the ship that she's on with Obi-Wan and Anakin at the time. That Dooku tries to take Savage Opress as an apprentice as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. So this is after Ventress has fallen out with him.
Right, because Mother Talisman sends him there to try to get revenge on Sidious, I believe.
Yep.
Because of the Darth Maul situation, because she gave him Darth Maul, and he pretty much got him killed and didn't freaking take him back or whatever.
Right. That's right. He does like hook up with
so even
for a little bit.
Even though Ventress is like gone out of the picture, like he tries to take another one right away. Mm-hmm. So he's definitely has some plans, which is sort of interesting. So yeah, by this time Ventress must be gone. At least not dead, but out of the picture or whatever. Yeah. So maybe, you could think maybe he wants Maul to be that sort of level, like the assassin level, or he wants to just torture him and mess with his midichlorians or something. Who knows?
Right.
So I guess you could look at it either way.
So, but Maul ends up breaking out. He ends up escaping Darth Sidious, and I think we were just talking about this a little while ago. He uses the help of the Mandalorians to escape, and that's probably how he ends up at the end of Han Solo. Like he probably, once the Mandalorians help him escape, he probably like reestablishes his control over the crime syndicates. And,
the Crimson Dawn at this point, which is in the Solo movie, which is actually canon, and obviously, Maul being that leader is canon as well.
Right. So he reestablishes his power and becomes like the leader again of like probably like members of the Death Watch, also like the crime syndicates that he was in charge of before, and that's how we get to like I said, the end of Han Solo.
Yeah, because when Sidious is like, I have plans for you, I think that's the last time you see him in Clone Wars.
Yeah. So
you never know what the fuck happens to him.
Right.
And obviously Solo came out after all this shit, but just in the timeline, this is when Solo happened, not right after that, but after that, and he became the leader of the Crimson Dawn and stuff like that.
So technically, unless they put out another movie that puts him in it, the next time you see Obi-Wan is in Rebels. I mean, not Obi-Wan. I'm
Darth
sorry.
Maul. Right.
Right. Next time you see Darth Maul is in Rebels.
Right. Which was so awesome how they like just not threw him in, but like introduced him.
Yep.
Like he's on Malachor, and he's trying to basically get like a Sith weapon to take on the Emperor and pretty much get his revenge on him and all that stuff. And he's trying to get like Ezra, which is basically the main character of Rebels, to become his apprentice and help him and all that stuff.
So you think like at this point, all of his like, how do I say this? How he was in charge of all these crime syndicates and whatever. It seems like that's not a thing anymore. Seems like he's just an old shitty hermit now. Like he's not in charge of anything. He's just like alone and full of regrets.
It's a little weird, like time frame wise and what happened as far as that goes.
Right, because this definitely seems like it's way after Solo.
Right, because he was. I mean,
It's almost right before episode A New Hope comes out, which is 4.
Right.
It starts up.
I mean, I'd definitely like to know more information on, the Kira Darth Maul story.
Hell yeah.
And how that went.
Totally.
I'd definitely be down for something like that. And I mean, that would, even a miniseries or something.
Or another Han Solo movie.
Yeah, or a book or whatever the case may be.
So
that'd definitely be interesting.
So he shows up on Malachor. There's all kinds of crazy shit that happens. Is that the time when he gets Kanan gets blinded and whatnot?
Yeah, it's those the Sith wannabe guys. What the fuck are their names now?
The Inquisitors.
Inquisitors, thank you.
Yeah.
The Inquisitors are like doing the freaking helicopter shit around the temple and stuff, which is ridiculous. So stupid. And then Darth Maul. What's cool is like Darth Maul, it's Ahsoka, it's Ezra Bridger and Kanan.
Yeah.
Fighting them off and like kicking their ass.
It's Buffy the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
She's there.
And again, Maul's trying to get Ezra to become his apprentice. Kanan's like, that's not happening.
Right.
And Ahsoka and Ezra I think they go up one way or something, like up the elevator. Somehow they get separated. I don't remember what exactly happens. So it's Kanan and Maul together. And Maul, obviously Sith style, turns on him and ends up blinding him.
Hits him with the lightsaber or something, right?
Yeah.
Something. They end up fighting real quick, and he does like a sneaky
right.
move and blinds him.
He blinds him, but it was like... It was almost like in Rebels the end of season 1, when the Inquisitor is fighting Kanan and Ezra, and Kanan thinks Ezra's dead, and he's like, "That was a mistake." Saying this to Inquisitor, that was a mistake. Now I have nothing to lose, and that's when he comes a lot stronger in the Force because he doesn't have like that burden or whatever, and then he fucking owns it. He chops the freaking lightsaber in half and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it was sort of a point like this was sort of that point. Like, okay, I'm blind. I don't need my eyes to be one with the Force.
His character, in a weird way, became like more powerful and way cooler once he became blind.
Right.
He seemed more introspective and seemed to be more like once he got over the fact he was blind and owned it, he really like started to excel. Like once he got out of his funk of, oh shit, I'm blind, I can't do anything.
Yeah, because at the end of the episode, he has like R2-D2 like walking him around and shit, and he's just like, I can't do anything.
So those Inquisitors end up dying. It's basically Kanan, Ahsoka, and Ezra and Darth Maul find the control thing of whatever for the
holocron, yeah.
For the holocron, and they try to start that Sith super weapon, right?
Right.
And doesn't Darth Vader show up?
Yeah, which is fucking. He's like literally flying on his fucking TIE fighter.
Yeah.
He's just like, hey, here I am, and then everyone's like, oh fuck. Maul leaves. Everyone's like, trying.
I gotta go.
Yeah. Maul's gone. He's like, I can't beat this fucker.
I'm out.
Ezra and Kanan. And they get on their ship and they're trying to fly away. And this is when Ahsoka throws Ezra into the ship as the thing's like closed on him. And this is when Ahsoka and Darth Vader fight. And for years, you don't know what the fuck happens.
Right. Ahsoka pushing him like that is kind of a nod to the whole thing that happens with Kanan at the end of the series.
Which is still amazing.
But like... So Darth Maul runs away, and there's that big fight with Ahsoka and Darth Maul, which was, oh my god. They had James Earl Jones come back to do the voice for that too, and they did a mix of and the guy who played Anakin and James Earl Jones for certain parts of it, which was fucking fabulous.
That fight was awesome.
Yeah. So after that, Darth Maul shows up a couple of more times. He tries to kidnap the ghost of the crew, right?
Well, yeah, he does kidnap them and like...
He tries to get the holocron back for some
reason. Yeah, he wants Ezra... Because there's a weird connection with them now.
Yeah. And Ezra goes a little dark for a while.
Yeah, it seems like he might turn. But they both like meditate or whatever on a holocron, Ezra and Maul. To find Obi-Wan, basically. Well, that's what he wants to find, and
Ezra wants to find shit about his parents.
Well, he wants to find how to kill the Sith. I thought, or take out the Sith once and for all, which is the same
exactly
the same answer, basically.
Find Obi-Wan. Oh, Obi-Wan.
Because Obi-Wan's with Luke.
Yep.
And so they see the two sons of Tatooine and all that stuff, and so it's like they're both going to the same place. Like they're
they both
missions the same place.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't know that at the time.
So they're on Tatooine. Ezra ends up finding Obi-Wan first, and Obi-Wan's like, he tells Obi-Wan the story, and Obi-Wan puts him on his whatever it was, his mount.
Dewback, I think.
Was it a Dewback?
I think so.
Sends him off, into the sunset or into the night, and then he sits there and waits for Darth Maul.
Yeah, Darth Maul basically figures out it's Tatooine, and he's walking around aimlessly for who knows how long.
But he finally stumbles
but
across.
again, Maul and Ezra have that
connection.
So he's like he sort of tells Ezra through the Force like, "Come here." And I believe Ezra interprets it as Obi-Wan is in trouble. I need to help him. So then, in reality, Ezra's the one in trouble, so Obi-Wan helps him.
That's totally true.
And that's how Darth Maul finds Obi-Wan finally.
And this leads to another one of my favorite lightsaber battles of all time.
Again,
and this probably the shortest lightsaber battle of all time.
Well, to set the stage, these are probably two of my favorite characters across the board. Maybe my top two, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, this shit's going down. This seems like this is going to be the final battle or whatever. And this time it's Sir Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan. Yeah. Like he has the fucking parted hair, gray, and all that stuff.
So they posture for a little bit.
Right.
They talk, and Maul's like, you're a fucking old hermit now. Look at you. You're a fucking...
What are you doing here?
You're a fucking mess. And Obi-Wan's like, no. Look what I have overcome. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And then Maul puts it together.
He's like, what, you protect something? Oh, you're protecting someone.
And then you hear...
Yep, and this time...
When Maul pieces it together, Obi-Wan fucking starts his lightsaber. Like,
right.
And it reminds me of like that scene from... I can't remember the name of the movie. A Bronx Tale. When the bikers go into that bar. Do you know what movie I'm talking about?
Yes.
The bikers go into the bar and the mob guys are like, dude, you need to leave. And they're like, fuck you. And then the mob guys get up and lock the door and they go, fuck me? Now you can't leave.
Right.
And the fight starts. Oh, another cool thing about that fight, you notice like when they're posturing and they take their little stances, Obi-Wan's first stance is that one where he puts his two fingers out.
Yeah.
Which is the one he uses in the movie, and like it shows up somewhere else too. Oh,
Sarusu?
Yeah. So he does that one at first, and then when Maul switches his stance, Obi-Wan switches. He comes out of that and he switches to another stance. And from what I've heard or from what I've seen, when he does that, he's switching from a kind of defensive, like, just a regular kind of combative thing. But when he switches out of that famous stance that he does, he's switching to a more aggressive stance that he usually never uses. Aggressive style or something.
Just a little background, which you probably know this as well, which I'll explain to them. In episode 1, he's using Atari, whatever it's called.
Okay.
Which is
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Which is Yoda's, like, what he masters, like flipping around and shit like that. Obviously, he doesn't flip around that much.
Oh, so that's probably what he used to
right.
chop them all.
But he changed to Sarusu. He became a master of that.
Okay.
And
what's
then
that one like?
And then, which is all defensive.
Defensive. All right.
Like Mace Windu and Kit Fisto, like basically say, Obi-Wan is not a master of Sarusu. Obi-Wan is Sarusu. Like he's like the master of the master. You know what I mean? Like no one does it better than he does, basically.
That defensive style.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what people point to how he beat Anakin, because Anakin was stronger, better the Force, all that stuff.
Well, he was more powerful. He didn't necessarily know more about the Force.
Right. But Obi-Wan was, at least explained to me, he was always like not the best Force user, not the best lightsaber, but because of all his hard work and studying, he became one of the top ones.
Right.
Like he wasn't naturally gifted with these things as much as Anakin Mace Windu, Yoda, and
but at the same time, he could hold his own with all those guys.
So in Return of Revenge of the Sith, God damn it, that's what sort of threw Dooku off when Anakin and Obi-Wan fought him on Grievous' ship or whatever, because they attacked him in different forms that they haven't before. So that's why Dooku was like, "Fuck you! You need to get out of here because I can't handle this," and use the Force instead. At least that's explained in like the novel or whatever. And then of course Anakin kills him eventually. But so I think that's pretty much a mirror of what is happening right now. Like he starts defensive, And at this time, Maul hasn't really trained much, aside from maybe with his brother. So he probably is the same exact he was in Episode 1, how many years ago?
Yeah.
So obviously, by this time, Obi-Wan is he's a master now. He's not even just a Jedi Knight. He's a Jedi Master and has all these years of training and shit like that.
But he must switch to a more like lethal style.
Right.
Because what happens next is just...
Well, he starts defensive. He
does that defensive thing with the two fingers.
I mean, just with the fighting, like... I believe, again, I'll have to watch it again to like say how many hits, but I believe like Maul swings twice, he blocks and it's done.
Yeah.
Like it's that quick. Like he just, all right, I'm gonna stop your aggressive attack. I know how you fight, but because I've grown so much, it's fucking done.
It was surgical.
Yeah.
It was surgical the way he took him out. Like, all right, come on. Like basically he let Maul attack so Maul could put himself in the position Obi-Wan wanted him to, so he could take him out in one shot.
And that's what all Maul's aggressive. I mean, that's Maul's style is
to be aggressive.
I'm going to be overly aggressive that your defense is going to break down. You're not going to be able to react. But again, the master of defense, basically, master Jedi now at this time. I mean,
without doubt,
there's no comparison. Plus, of course, you got to throw in if Maul is literally walking around the desert for how many months or something.
Yeah,
he's probably in pretty tough
shape. Just a few days.
Yeah,
if he was wandering around, he's weak and hungry and thirsty. He was probably a fucking wreck too, and half out of his mind.
But I like, after he does that, he grabs Maul before he falls, and it was just like, oh, is this the chosen one or whatever Maul says to him? He's like, yes, this is the one that's gonna, get our revenge.
Oh yeah.
So now they're
will avenge us.
Yeah, like they were always at odds against each other and stuff, but they're really looking for the same goal to get revenge. Well, not revenge Jedi level, I guess, but get. Basically, you say he will avenge us. I believe the wording was.
Yeah, from Maul's perspective, it's revenge, but from Obi-Wan's perspective, it's balance.
Right.
I guess it's his life. It's all about perspective.
So basically, they're saying Luke is the chosen one, not Anakin at this point.
Right.
Which, again, this is canon and all that stuff.
And that is really the last time you see Darth Maul.
Right.
That's when he really, really dies. Really, really, really? Yep. So then after him, it's go back in time, but
Dooku. Obviously, when Maul gets chopped in half and pretty much is for dead, Dooku becomes Dooku.
Dooku becomes Darth Tyrannus.
Yep.
And
he
serves for a time.
Right. Just to back up, well, he was a Jedi Master that wasn't really liking the Jedi shit, at least as far as the Plagueis book goes. So Sidious
we got into him a lot in the Plagueis book. So I mean,
Sidious just like pushes him along. Eventually, tells him he's a Sith Lord. He's like, okay, that's cool. I'll fucking do that.
I've said this before. Like, Darth Tyrannus, Dooku, fits more the bill of like the kind of Sith Lord that Plagueis was, the kind of Sith Lord that Palpatine was. Tyrannus is that kind of Sith Lord,
right? A
political entity, a leader, whereas Maul was a savage.
Right, Maul was, and I think Vader's the same sort of way.
Vader is.
I think
Vader is more of like a Maul.
Like thinking about it, Maul and Vader are like almost the same fucking character, like in a way.
Well,
I mean, obviously there's more to Vader, but as far as like how Sidious uses them, it seems like, oh, you're just gonna be my friggin'. I'm just gonna throw you at whatever problem I have. You're gonna go take care of it, and then.
That's true, but I think probably like when Maul is like 100% just savage, I think Vader is like 75%.
Yeah.
That, and he also does the political stuff too. Like he deals with what's his name, Tarkin. He talks to fucking.
Yeah, he's not just sitting in the back. Yeah, that's true.
He chokes co-workers at work and staff meetings.
Yes, I would not want to be under his command.
No, but at the same time, you're like, I get it.
Yeah, I understand they fucked up.
I totally get it.
It's funny they explain in the Thrawn books a lot about like how Vader was and stuff, just like choking people out, and like all these people were scared and stuff. Or even in the Lost Star book too.
Yeah,
they explain a lot of that. Like, oh, no one wants to mess with Vader.
Yeah,
no one wants to be under his command.
Nope.
So yeah, I mean, most of Dooku, canon-wise, is in the book. I mean, in the movies.
Yeah.
What happens with him? Like, he sort of comes out of relative nowhere if you don't know the Plagueis book and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like shitty, like we've said in the last cast, I think.
Yeah,
where the hell this guy come from?
And then, hey, we can't really say anything more about Dooku that we already haven't. And everything else you need to know is in the movies. He gets his head chopped off by Anakin.
Yeah. Looks over. Oh, really, Master? Even though I was just trying to overthrow you this whole time, but
yeah. So then, after he dies, not long after that, Anakin becomes Darth Vader. Most of his shit is covered in the movies.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't really need to get into
6 movies worth, plus countless comic books, etc.
Yeah. Everybody knows him. After him, so during the time of like Darth Vader and Palpatine, there's this one other Force user. I don't remember her real name, but she's
so Shira Ellen Colabri.
Yeah, and she becomes Lumaya, Darth Lady of the Sith. So she's like for a time. She becomes like she's a pilot or something in the Imperial Navy, and she draws the attention of Vader, and Vader starts putting her through some training, and because he's realized that she's Force sensitive, so he starts training her in the Force. So there's like this kind of like a dual thing going on. So she becomes like the Emperor's hand, but at the same time, Vader is also training her as his hand in secret without telling the Emperor. Like, yeah, go be the Emperor's hand, but in secret, you're gonna be my apprentice, my Sith apprentice.
Right.
We're gonna kill that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that happens, and then which is all happening behind the scenes, and then we know what happens with Darth Vader and Palpatine.
Well, they give her like the mission to infiltrate the rebellion and kill Luke Skywalker.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So infiltrates.
That's all her whole thing.
She becomes a confidant, but then like Luke Skywalker figures it out. They have a fight. Luke Skywalker is, kind of wins, but she's really fucked up, and she gets like. She's so fucked up that when Vader finds her and rescues her, he has to like rebuild her with mechanical parts.
Sort of like how he is, yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. But she becomes meta-human. She becomes a more powerful human in addition to the fact that she has Force powers. And, but still after the fact, she's the only one that she survives after Palpatine and Vader get killed. So she's not the chosen Sith Lord. She's the de facto Sith Lord. She's I'm the only one left.
She's non-canon as well.
She's non-canon as well. That's true.
But what's one thing cool about her, she actually makes a light whip versus a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fucking awesome. Which I would love to see, like... I know it's sort of like in The Last Jedi, rather. Like, they sort of have a light whip, like one of the Praetorian Guards, somewhat.
Oh, yeah, kind of.
But I'd like to see that fleshed out, like someone have something different than a lightsaber. That'd be pretty cool.
So when she faces Luke Skywalker the second time as Lumia, Dark Lady of the Sith, she kind of whoops Luke's ass. Like, he doesn't know how to deal with the whip.
Right.
And then he goes back, he regroups, and he makes a shorter lightsaber.
When I was reading this and going over this, it sort of reminds me of way back in the Darth Bane books when he fights that Zabrak that's using a double-sided lightsaber, and he doesn't know how to like fight against it. Yeah. Like, it sort of like was like, oh, well, that just happened. Like, not just happened, but that same sort of thing happened there because they weren't prepared. So it's sort of cool, like a mirror sort of thing again.
So I think that happens way later on, though.
No, I mean that was like thousands years ago. No, I mean like
the second fight.
Oh yeah,
where Luke. So like she fights Luke a second time with the whip, as Lumia, kind of whoops his ass, and then they fight a third time, which I think happens way later, and and that's when he comes back with the Shoto lightsaber. But in the interim, she has her own. She takes on her own apprentice. What the fuck's his name? Darth Flint or something stupid
Flint,
like that.
yes.
Just Flint. Yeah, and he's like a stormtrooper that she found that was force sensitive.
So let's put up a picture of her first. She actually looks pretty cool.
Where is it? Yeah, that's her. She does look pretty awesome. Let's show Flint for a second, then we'll go back to her. See Flint? See why he looks so
disappointed?
Because nobody gives a fuck about this motherfucker. Yeah. That's why. We shouldn't even be talking about him. His name is
Flint.
Flint. I'm sad. No one cares about me. Watch the video on YouTube. If you're listening to this on a podcast, just for this part, watch the video on YouTube.
Yes.
This guy's lame as fuck.
Well, he was a son of a Clone Wars era Jedi Knight, Flint Toril. So he's the second in the line of Flints. During the Imperial period, he was actually chosen by Darth Vader as his fourth pupil. Let's see what else he did here. So he became like a stormtrooper. He actually got personal training from Vader, so I guess he knows something.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how him and Lumia got it together.
And then she started training. All right, let's go back to her. 'Cause she's way cooler. And
she is cooler. I agree.
He's already had way too much screen time.
Yes, but just to throw him out there, there's not that much info on him really. But
lame as fuck.
There
she is.
She's back.
She's a badass motherfucker. So she trains that dude, and she survives. I assume that dude dies at some point, but she survives later on into the comics when Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and Han Solo have kids, right?
Yeah, because she's actually around when the Yuuzhan Vong come and all that stuff.
Exactly, right? So she survives.
She's around a long time.
And so what happens is, long story short, Han Solo and Princess Leia have 3 kids. Their first 2 kids are twins, Jaina, the female, and Jason, the male, Solo. They both grow up to be Jedi Knights. And during the Yuuzhan Vong War, Jason Solo, before Jason, okay, so there's 3 Solo kids. The youngest was named after his grandfather. His name was Anakin. During the Yuuzhan Vong War, Anakin was killed. We don't really need to get into that. But the 2 twins were left. And another thing that happened, so Jaina became like a super famous pilot in the Yuuzhan Vong War. And the brother, the other twin, Jason, who Kylo Ren is based on, basically.
Right, yeah.
Jason is captured by the Yuuzhan Vong. And basically he's given to this Jedi that survived the Purge, Jedi, like this bird chick named Vergeer. And it's Vergeer's job to like fuck with Jason's head and torture him. And how she tortures him, she straps him to something called the Embrace of Pain.
Yep.
And it just totally, she just tortures him. There's the book where they get into this is called Traitor, and it's written by Matthew Stover. And this is probably one of my favorite books in that whole Yuuzhan Vong series, because the conversations that Jason and Jaina have are fucking spectacular in that book. We should do a book review of that one. One of the things I want to touch on specifically is she says to Jason, there's no such thing as the light side or the dark side of the Force. There is only the Force. That other stuff, that's what you bring to it.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the Force. That's you. There's no... And I was just like, holy shit. Like, it was another one of those books to make me go, like, this is too good to be a fucking Star Wars book in a way. That guy, Matthew Stover, wrote a couple of books.
Right.
He did awesome.
He was good.
Yeah, he did one about Mace Windu, which I fucking love. But I just love that whole thing with Lumia and Jason Solo and how they get into that. And by the end of that, Jason Solo basically learns how to manipulate the Yuuzhan Vong technology, which is biotech. Basically, everything's alive, and he learns how to like use their weapons against them. I think that's the start of his like turn to the dark side, somewhat.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
I think that's pretty much what I have as well.
So later on in those books, in the with Jason's thing, Jason has a vision. This is like I don't know how many books later. Jaina is becoming like a super popular Jedi, and Jason, he's kind of tapped to take over for Luke, but he's falling short of what you think the next Grand Master of the Jedi Order should be. And he has this like vision where there's this like lightsaber flying at him from like far away, and he tries to catch it and he misses, and it goes past him, and I think his sister catches it. This scene in the books is the exact scene that happens when
Kylo and Rey, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a vision in this book, but it happens for real in the movie, right? So the reason that happens is because Jason isn't going to be the Grand Master that takes over for Luke, and neither is Jaina. But Jaina catches the lightsaber because later on she becomes something that she is granted a title that didn't exist, which is basically the Sword of the Jedi, which she like at that particular there's a certain point in time where she becomes the most badass sword fighter Jedi ever, right? So Jason, I just wanted to bring that vision up before we get into like how he really starts falling to the dark side. So he has another vision about like some dark figure that doesn't exist yet, or I think it's Luke has a vision about some dark figure that doesn't exist yet, and Luke can't figure out why the person doesn't exist yet, because like later on he realized it was Jason, but the person that Jason becomes, Jason wasn't that person that like that evil person yet, so he couldn't figure out why the person didn't exist yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that just sound weird? All right.
Makes sense.
But I guess Jason figures out like there's like some kind of turmoil is going to happen in the galaxy, and he's like, well, I'll just do whatever I have to fix it. Ends justify the means, right?
Right.
And that's kind of when he hooks up with Lumia again. That's where Lumia comes back.
Yeah, and she sort of turns him
and
finally.
She starts training him.
And that's the Anakin thing all over again, basically.
Right.
Like, oh, well, I got to learn these powers, so whatever it takes, to make my wife,
And it's like that whole manifest destiny thing. You do everything in your power to try and stop the vision that you've seen, but in the end you realize everything you've done to stop it is exactly what needed to happen to make it happen.
Right.
So a little behind the scenes with this, like in his training with in Lumia, the writers of those books, that series, Karen Travis, she's written a bunch of Star Wars books that are all fucking fantastic. She took a cue from the Nazis for the training of for Jason Solo into Darth Kaitis, where the Nazis would take they would give Nazi Boy Scouts or whatever you call them.
That's what they were called.
Yeah, sure, I forgot. But they'd give them like German Shepherds to raise, and then at some point they would make the Boy Scouts, after they've raised them and like they've been like their best friends, they make them kill the dog to prove like that you're, I don't know, loyal to the Nazis or the right. Like they can make you do anything. You have to sacrifice something you love to do this, right? And so Karen Travis wanted to use that logic in the book, so she made Jason kill Luke Skywalker's wife, Mara Jade, which is one of the most fucking iconically loved characters in the EU. But
I hope they bring her around somehow. But
yeah, they could probably bring her back around at some point, maybe.
At least her story or
yeah. And that right there, that's basically his coronation of Sith Lord, is by killing Luke Skywalker's wife. And he does a bunch of other bad shit after that. But right around that time is when that second battle, or the third battle between Luke and Lumia.
Yeah, I think during the Yuuzhan Vong War, Lumia sort of goes in the shadows.
Right.
And, after she gets with now Darth Lord, or Darth Caedus.
Caedus, yeah.
She finally,
that's how you pronounce it.
Feels like she can reveal herself again.
Mm-hmm.
And she surrenders herself to basically death against Luke Skywalker instead of trying to get away like she has been. Because she's like, oh, my revenge is already there. This guy's going to freaking kill all these people anyway.
Yeah.
So that's when she finally dies.
And that's the third fight where Luke comes back with that second Shoto lightsaber.
Right.
And, tools are up. So Jason commits like a bunch of atrocities. He becomes like this... He becomes like a warlord, political type guy, where he's like gaining power and whatnot, and he's trying to exert his will on the galaxy at large. And at some point, Jaina Solo, his twin sister, realizes there is nobody but me who can fucking take this guy out. Like, someone needs to take this guy out, and it's me. But I don't think I'm ready. So who does she go to get the right training to fucking kill her brother? Boba Fett.
Yes.
So she goes to Boba Fett and she gets some Mandalorian training, and her badassery is just compounded. And she even acquires like Mandalorian armor, I think. Right? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. She wears it. She wears it in the last battle with her brother. She wears the armor in that fight with him, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
But it all comes down to that. I mean, is there anything you want to add before?
I know another thing he did. He actually tortured his former apprentice Ben Skywalker too.
Ben Skywalker, who is Luke Skywalker's son.
Yeah. He ends up friggin' torturing him and I believe killing him eventually. So that was one of the
you are totally right about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
And he takes Tyree Vila as his official Sith apprentice. Probably butchering that name.
Let me see it. Tahiri Vela.
There you go.
Tahiri Vela. Yeah, she was a pretty cool character. Yeah. Actually, her and Ben kind of have a thing going on for a while, but then they don't.
They don't.
She was a cool character. She had issues. She went back and forth a little bit, but overall, I mean, I don't know. She was a victim of circumstances too.
But yeah, his sister takes him out eventually, so that's sort of what ends his reign, so to speak.
There's a big fight, and his sister fucking kills him. And it's like one of those bittersweet things, like, yay, she won. Ooh, yeah, but she just killed her brother.
Yeah,
which is weird. After Darth Caedus is Darth Red. So
there must be like
so there's a big huge gap there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
so
one of the many in this lineage.
So after all that's done, like years later, when we're at the not Luke's, so this would be Ben. Nope. So Ben's grandson, Ben Skywalker's grandson. So it goes Luke, Ben, then it goes Ben's son, which I can't remember his name, and then Cade Skywalker. All right? So this is how many generations after Luke? So it's Luke, Ben, Ben's son, and Cade. So it's like...
3 after Luke.
So it's Luke's great-grandson, right? This is like 3 generations after Luke, right? And there's a new Sith Lord in town, and his name is Darth Krayt. We'll get to Darth Red, I guess. So Darth Krayt started this whole new Sith order with a whole bunch of Sith, and he basically tried to assassinate. Basically, what was left over from the Imperials was something called the Imperial Remnant, and it survived. and it became its own little government with its own little system of planets. Darth Krayt tried to assassinate the guy that was in charge of the Imperial Remnant, his name was Roan Fel, but he didn't end up killing him, but he still took over what was left of the Empire. He used that to start a war again against the Republic. I think the Empire is like totally in charge at this point. I don't remember all the details, but this is the Sith Order that was in the mix at that time. And this Darth Red guy showed up after the fact, and he hated the Sith Order, right? Am I right on this? He
towards the end of the Second Imperial Civil War.
Yep.
But one Sith had tested a bioweapon which destroyed all life on his homeworld, so that's why he eventually pretty much hated that.
That sounds familiar, right?
However, the Sith spared his life, I believe.
And he was an apprentice
to a Sith Lord.
Dude all right. That did fucked up shit to him.
Right. But even though he was trained by them, he hated the Sith because they destroyed his world, basically. Right. So.
But the Sith that like took him as apprentice and whatnot, these all fall under Darth Krayt's Sith Order, right?
So yeah, when Darth Krayt died, following the death of him, it ended the Galactic Empire.
And he tried to get his own Rule of Two thing going, didn't he?
Yep. So Darth Red and his master went underground as part of the Sith strategy of infiltrating governments and corporations. Basically what everyone's doing.
And he posed as an Imperial Knight for a while, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah, I remember
to restore their so-called golden age and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah. And he basically got called out after a while because he wasn't acting very Imperial Knight-ish. Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's all coming back to me now.
So he trapped an Imperial Knight named Volta Val. And then Darth Red at this time killed his master and stole Master Val's identity and armor, which you were just talking about.
Yeah.
He took control of the G51 communications array and used it to announce his presence to the wider galaxy. Basically, like, I'm the fucking master. Here I am, sort of thing.
And what happened to this dude?
So he attempted to kill Master Val before a live galactic audience, but was thwarted by Ania Solo, A-N-I-A.
Okay.
A local junk dealer who was a descendant of Han Solo.
Yep. Junk dealer.
Despite failing to kill that master, he escaped. Let's see. And then he started hunting down Sith infiltrators across the galaxy. And again, because they fucked up his homeworld, that's why he's killing all these fools.
Yeah.
And he started basically a Sith Order and to reinitiate the Rule of Two.
Yeah.
The
the
Imperial
Solo chick ends up taking him out, right? No.
She stops him.
Oh.
Like, because I think he had like a live like HoloNet feed of him and the other master fighting, and she like stopped it somehow.
Val was the Twi'lek, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And there was another dude, Wolf or something, with one arm, who eventually got a prosthetic put on.
So Imperial Knight Assam experienced a Force vision of Darth Reed attacking Empress Fel, the daughter of Roan Fel.
Yeah, I was just talking about him. Does he kill her?
So Jayo and his new ally Ania Solo embark on a quest to hunt down the rogue Sith.
Yep.
But Darth Reed planted a series of false clues which led Jaya and Ania to the Calamari system, where another Sith named Darth Luft.
Darth what?
Luft, L-U-F-T. These fucking names are great. Have established a slaving operation using Mon Calamari and Quarren refugees.
Whatever.
Jesus Christ. These names are fucking awesome.
Not a great wrap up to the Rule of Two.
Well, despite liberating all those refugees and killing Darth Luft.
Yeah. Darth Love. That's who I'm going to be from now on. Darth Love.
Darth Love.
No more Uncle Tony. I'm Darth Love.
Damn right. But Jo and Anya quickly learn, they were pretty much doing what Darth Red wanted them to do by going there and freeing those people and killing them. So he attempted to tempt that knight to become his apprentice.
Yeah.
And to start. So Jo returned the galactic capital. Coruscant is the capital still, even though, it's not in Force Awakens and stuff like that.
Oh, but.
So Darth Red ended up actually visiting Jo in prison and offered to help him escape. He accepted the offer, not because he wanted to join the dark side, but because he wanted to get out, basically. And he wanted to stop Darth Red in whatever plan he was doing.
Yeah.
But Darth Red quickly figured it out that he was still loyal to the Empress and tricked him into luring the Imperial Knights and the one Sith onto Mala, where he intended to...
Guacamole? What? Yes. Darth Guacamole?
Where he intended to actually get his revenge on the one Sith for the wrongs that were inflicted on his homeworld.
Blah, blah, blah.
His plan worked, and Maul became the site of a climatic battle between the Imperial Knights and the one Sith.
Blah, 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 blah.
Having succeeded with this goal of destroying the one Sith, Darth Red came to believe that he had delved too far into the dark side to be redeemed.
Oh, that's what Crate called his Sith Order, the one Sith.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even the Rule of Two, it was just the one Sith.
Yeah, he was he was the Emperor. It wasn't everyone could be a Sith. It was I rule shit, basically. Realizing that he was the only Sith left, he launched a suicidal attack on Empress Fel, nearly succeeding in killing her. However, he was thwarted by Jo, who attacked him with his lightsaber and succeeded in slicing off both his hands, which you've seen 1,000 fucking other times in every movie and every book and shit.
Really went a different direction with this one.
And this is why people complain so much that it was the same shit over and over again, and that's sort of why probably Disney was like, okay, we need to throw everything out, even though there was some good stuff in there because there was a lot of bullshit. But even if his hand's chopped off, Darth Red tries to get Jo to go to the dark side again by killing him. So hopefully, he'll turn to the dark side from that act. Oh. Even it's not let's fix my hands and we'll be your apprentice.
That's dumb. I'm gonna trick this guy into killing me in the hopes that he'll go to the back. That's a big gamble.
Yeah, but I guess he was so he wanted to push forward the whole lineage that bad. I guess.
Yeah, he's not really thinking things out.
But he refused to. He figured out his trick. What a trick it was.
Yeah.
Refused to strike him down. And Darth Red, like you said, was killed by Anya Solo, bringing an apparent end to the Sith, finally.
All right. I barely, aside from the shit I said before you started in, I barely remember.
I can see why. It was the same thing happening over and over again.
Yeah.
And then finally it was okay, what should have happened probably 100 pages before in the book happened, finally.
That's all comic book stuff.
Yeah.
That's not even novel stuff, yeah. I have those comics, but...
See, until we actually decided to do the Rule of Two, at least him, I didn't even fucking know much about. So I was just when I was reading this, I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. I remembered him vaguely. I remembered Crate more.
Right.
Because there were a lot of cool...
I've heard of Crate before, and
he used two lights. Well, he was... his origin was from the Clone Wars era, because he was a Sharid Het or something, and his dad was a sand person, was a human that was taken in by the sand people, who became a great warlord sand person guy, right?
And that's the guy that...
And his son...
The book Kenobi they're talking about, right? So they mentioned someone came in with a lightsaber and was a great warrior and all this stuff. Is that the same person?
Yes. He fights him in that book, and Kenobi fucks him up.
Yeah.
That's right. I totally forgot about that until you mentioned that. So that dude, that's the dude that becomes Darth Crate. And he's actually he was captured by the Yuuzhan Vong too, and he kind of went through that. Something similar to Jason Solo with the Embrace of Pain and whatnot. But you don't find that out until the comic books that talk about the one the one Sith.
Right.
Basically the legacy Star Wars legacy comics, which is Cade Skywalker, Darth Krayt, those other people you were talking about. That's when all that shit happens. Which was a pretty cool series.
Yeah.
It was decent.
So now doing all this research, I'm pretty unimpressed with this whole lineage. Basically, like there was literally a handful of cool Sith Lords and stuff like that, but it's like most of them are just like dog shit.
They could totally improve on that.
Yes. So I mean, there's so much that Disney could do with this books.
Aside from the ones we touched on, like Darth Bane, Darth Plagueis, the ones that were in the movie, Vader, Palpatine, Maul, Tyrannus.
Yeah, they were all good.
They had interesting stories and whatnot.
And Xana was good.
Oh yeah, of course, Xana. I even liked Lumia and Darth Kaitis.
Lumia was cool too. That'd be cool to like.
Darth Kaitis and the whole thing with Jaina, Jason Solo, and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, like, not every one of those Yuuzhan Vaughn books is fucking awesome.
No,
there's a couple of awesome ones,
like
and there's a lot of shitty ones,
yeah.
and that's like I feel like in the last Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi, that when Yoda calls down the lightning and burns the hut. And Luke Skywalker is like, "Oh, the books are in there. You can't just let them go away like that or whatever." And Yoda's like, "Page turners, they were not."
Yeah.
Right there, I was sitting like, "Is that a dig on the fucking the old like Legend Star Wars books?" Because I was like, "It's kind of true." There's a few awesome ones, but a lot of them are not.
Yeah, the joke was...
A lot of them is just, like, filling space.
The joke is, like, oh, the new Sith super weapon, what are they going to face this time? And then, like, what Solo kid is going to friggin' save the day? And
don't get me wrong, like, there are good books. There are some awesome books out there, but not every one of them is awesome. But at the same time, even some of those shitty books have some great characters in them.
Right. And great, like, moments or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean...
And at the time, there was nothing else. There was no movies even announced or anything. So that's like,
right.
That was, your fill or whatever for Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you had.
And like, don't get me wrong, I don't remember everything about all the old books, but I've literally read 99.9% of all of those Legends books. I own them all. I've read them all. If not read them, I've listened to them on audiobook. Yeah, there's some great ones and there's some not so great ones. So. Take it as that. But I mean, it's a great source to like pull from for the movies. If they're gonna do that, I think they totally should. Just like the Kasdan team did, the father-son Kasdan team.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I love that fucking Han Solo movie. I think they're being stupid about that.
I mean, there's a lot of good information in there that they can definitely pull from. They have already pulled for some that we've already pointed out. So.
Well, if they were smart, they can cherry pick all that stuff. Like, this was awesome. The rest of this book was shit. This was good.
Again, that's why they do like, okay, this is not canon at all. So we have that power to do that. We don't have to
right, exactly. But back in the day before there was the Clone Wars cartoons and everything that was in a movie was 100% canon. Everything that was in a video game, a comic book, or a novel, or whatever was canon. Unless something came out in a movie that contradicted it. Then they changed it and said none of it's canon unless we cherry pick it. So, and that's when Disney bought it.
Yeah.
So,
which I mean, it sucks in a way. Like the perfect example, the Plagueis thing and the Anakin, like how he came about thing.
Right.
Like we were like, oh well, it's this way. Well, they just said it's this way. And that sort of shit's sort of annoying.
So did you end up reading that comic book?
I read the part where that happened.
How
I had to read the whole thing.
Was it lame? Was it cool?
Pretty much just explained it. It was like a couple pages basically. But like I said, the panel was Sidious like
I've seen the panel
behind him. Yeah.
I've seen the panel. Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's sort of. But I was looking more. Well, I was looking for that, of course. But I was looking why Shmi was actually chosen, which I don't think they explained.
Maybe Shmi's the chosen one.
Well, I did see when I was doing some research. I did see someone like it was a theory or whatever, fan theory, that maybe one of Shmi's past Skywalker was a Jedi or something.
Oh.
So there was some like force. Maybe she didn't have the force, but there was some like prior forceness or something. But of course, that's not anything. It's just a theory. But it's still sort of cool to think about that she was chosen for a reason.
All right.
But this is.
Does that wrap it up?
That wraps it. No
Rule of
babies
Two.
are being made.
Huh?
No babies are being made. It's wrapped up.
Yeah, wrapped up. The Rule of Two. We're done.
Yes, finally.
Some of it was awesome.
Some of it wasn't.
Yeah, some of it wasn't.
But it's explained.
Yeah, and it almost took us
14 hours. Not bad. But if you have stuck with us this long, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And as usual, if you have any suggestions on the episodes you want to hear or watch, let us know. Or a what if.
Something in a what if.
Or if we're wrong on something or you have some more information, let us know and we'll bring it up.
Yeah, if we're wrong and you bring it to our attention, that's cool. We'll correct it. We'll come back and there's something I was listening to one of the past podcasts when we were talking. Oh, in the Plagueis podcast, I said Plagueis when I should have said Palpatine in something, which totally took what I said out of context. I was listening. I was like, that makes no fucking sense, you idiot. So if anybody else catches it, I caught it too. I know it's fucked up.
I punched myself in the dick for it.
All right.
So with that, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Follow us everywhere.
Geekin. All that stuff down there.
Yeah, all that stuff that you can't see unless you're watching.
All that stuff down there.
And other places too. Just look for Geekin Out Network anywhere and you'll find us. So with that, Geekin Out!
Later.
Later.